Hi. The headline numbers of the pharma industry are quite grim. On average, it takes approximately 12 years and $2.5 billion to develop a drug. And 95 out of 100 drug development projects will fail. Despite technological advances in the last 50 years, drug R&D productivity keeps decreasing. Some examples of those technological advances that happened in the past 50 years include combinatorial chemistry, which increased the number of drug-like compounds that can be synthesized by one chemist every year by more than 800 times. DNA sequencing becoming 1 billion times faster than when we started, and now routinely done for less than $1,000. Thanks to the progress in generative AI, we can now predict 3D structure for any protein accurately. And finally, testing compound library against drug targets has decreased by more than 10 times since the mid-90s. But despite all those advances, productivity is not increasing. Quite the opposite, actually. One could argue that technological advances and the resulting massive amount of data produced are contributing factors to the R&D productivity problem, not solving it. Pharma R&D is primarily an imperfect information problem. Incomplete information poses a significant challenge for scientific decision-making during drug R&D. When essential data and information are missing or inaccurate, it becomes difficult to make informed decisions about the direction of research, the allocation of resources, and the design of clinical trial. This can result in inefficient and suboptimal use of resources, delays, and even failures in the drug development process. When considering pharma R&D, way too often people have a reductionist approach. For many years, it was necessary given its complexity and the fact that no one can deal with the quantity of information in the end-to-end R&D process. Of course, you can break it down by phases and highlight the key outcome of each stage. For instance, in early discovery, understanding the mechanism of a disease is essential, and errors at this stage are major contributors of late-stage failure. But one could argue that given of how highly regulated the pharma R&D process is, the major milestones of this process are actually the production of regulatory documents, such as IND, or any other interaction with the regulatory authorities. So our job as professionals dealing with data and the production of knowledge is to support this process as best as we can. To support this process, we need to be able to map it out in detail and highlight which information is necessary at which stage. One could argue that the recent development in large language model, LLMs, and generative AI are providing an unprecedented opportunity to tackle this imperfect information problem. Why is this so? So as mentioned previously, the scientific approach has always been reductionist because one cannot deal with the complexity of life, the complexity of information in our domain. Only in the last few decades has the emergence of fields like system biology demonstrated that if you really want to understand what's happening, you need to embrace complexity. Unfortunately, the human mind is limited and is not omniscient. And this is where LLMs and generative AI are changing the game. They are truly omniscient technology, as long as they can be trained on the right data, which is, I admit, a big caveat. And they can be used to support scientists to make the right decision at the right time, with knowledge of all relevant information when it is needed, and also the knowledge of what is not known, which is equally important. So the process of pharma R&D involves making thousands of small and big decisions, which are ultimately summarized in internal reports, interaction, and regulatory submission to the authority. Unfortunately, the current process is far from optimal, as evidenced by the grim numbers of the pharma industry. To repeat, 12 years to develop a drug, $2.5 billion, 95% failure rate. So our vision is really to create a world where high-quality life science data, coupled with powerful data orchestration tools and cutting-edge AI trained on high-quality, fair data, can help solve the problem of imperfect information in pharma R&D. By doing so, we can empower scientists to make more informed decisions, optimize resource allocation, and decide on more effective clinical trial design, for instance. This in turn will lead to a more efficient and successful drug development process, enabling us to bring new and better treatment to patients faster and at a lower cost. So if you share our vision and would like to contribute to this effort, please feel free to contact me for further discussion. Together, we can make a real difference in the world of pharma R&D.